Okay, so very quick bit about us, Truly SMB. Like, as it says here, so we exist to sort of help small businesses gain access, experience some of the tech that was often sort of reserved for enterprises. I'll share a bit more later on with Truly Fit, but I genuinely believe we have a sort of a different approach to tech adoption. You'll hear me probably say that quite a few times today, but how we can help SMBs really sort of adopt new technologies and really sort of make the most of the tools that they have. We're going to move on to what is Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'll move through this relatively fast, probably because most people know it, but I think it is worth just highlighting. So look, you can see on screen, large language models, plus Microsoft Graph and Microsoft 365 apps. Now, if we just talk through what those are, is it just sort of ChatGPT? Like, there's an element of that. You can do that with Copilot Chat, but the key piece is sort of that middle bit, that Microsoft Graph, which is essentially your data. You know, that's your business context. That is your emails. That's your messages. That's your documents. Obviously, given the relevant permissions, but Copilot can understand that business context as it has access to that content, and it really, that's that part where, because Copilot's sort of working alongside your business data, it really sort of amps up the sort of day-to-day use for it. And also from a security point of view, which I think it's on my next slide, here around Microsoft have sort of layered over the top security, compliance, privacy, things like it respects, your current permission settings for files and things. That's massively useful instead of having to, replicate that again in a different tool. And things like responsible AI, like biases, that type of thing. That's Microsoft 365 Copilot sort of wrapped that in, so you don't have to kind of consider those additional sort of overheads when thinking about AI tools. And then it works with your apps. The apps which probably most of us use every single day. There is just going to be more and more of this as Copilot gets embedded into the apps. And we're just at the start of this. It will genuinely speed up, even if you haven't sort of tried it in those apps now. There's some impressive stuff that's already there. We'll show a bit of that today, but that's just going to get it's going to get stronger and stronger. Okay, we're going to talk a bit about data security. This is something which, when we talk to businesses, it still pops up. These are some stats just from that recent sort of work index report, and 3/4 of knowledge workers surveyed use AI at work. And what's quite a staggering number is that 80% of those AI users are bringing their own tools to work, i.e. they're using free ChatGPT or their own personal sort of license if they've got a paid for version of one of those tools, which is kind of crazy. And look, that means their business data is probably leaving that sort of bubble that you have in Microsoft 365 and all your sort of permissions and your sharing settings and all that stuff. And that might be, sharing customer data. That might be putting strategy, IP out into the world, or used to train certain models using things like Gemini, for example. And so, look, that is a concern, and rightfully a concern, but it's one that doesn't have to necessarily hold people back. We've had before where it's like, I can't start until everything's all locked down. But Copilot, because you're staying inside that sort of commercially data protected bubble, you can, as it says here on screen, sort of elevate creativity and productivity and protect business data at the same time. Okay, I mentioned Copilot 3, which is Copilot Chat. I will just take a second just to explain briefly the sort of the difference between them. So Copilot Chat, you can think of it like everyone, I say everyone, most people probably on the call will have experienced, using some Gen AI tool. And so Copilot Chat is like that. It doesn't have immediate access to your work context. However, you can upload files, that's documents or images, things like that. You can copy and paste, and obviously things like chats and meeting transcripts, that type of thing, and it stays commercially protected. Yeah, so that's the big advantage. I know I keep mentioning it, but Copilot Chat keeps that secure. Microsoft 365 Copilot is the sort of paid for SKU. And that does have their work scope, yeah. So it understands. So I could say what's someone's opinion on X, and it will look in our messages between each other, look at emails. It would take into consideration any meetings we've had together and what was said, all of that type of thing. It understands that sort of work product. It also then shows up inside your apps. Those are kind of the big differences. And then agents as well. You can actually use agents in Copilot Chat in the free version. Right, let's get stuck in. We'll have a quick look at sort of some of the use cases that I feel are kind of nice to show. Let's hope this all works smoothly. So here we go. So this page, this is a big Microsoft Learn article. Anyone who's used Microsoft Learn before will probably be familiar with this. This is a Business Central page. You can see lots and lots of information on here. Now, what's nice is using Copilot in Edge. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Copilot a question about all of the detail on this page. Now, obviously I could try and digest that, make my own deduction, but I'm going to ask Copilot, say, like, what parameters should I use to maintain a certain level of stock? Because this page is around planning parameters for inventory. So it's quite a complex subject. And so here it's come back and said, it's the right answer. So in my previous life, I used to be a Business Central consultant, and so that is the right answer. But I'm also going to ask here to summarize all the planning parameters. So it's going to take all that information that's on the page. Now, I'm also using this as an example of some quite complicated subjects, but that might be you're comparing, two things, and so you're wanting to get sort of someone else's opinion. Or like this, it might be summarizing quite a big article or blog post to kind of get the salient points. And this has done a really nice job of actually summarizing, rather than trying to read what can be quite complicated things to read, just simplifying it down and saying, like, I want it in a simple way to understand. And you can ask it in whichever style. You could ask it to be more technical. You could ask it to be, explain it to me like as if I'm a 5-year-old, and it will put it in different terms. It's very, very good at doing that. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope people have taken some stuff away. Have a lovely rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.